The last patient of the night is a golden retriever named Biscuit. You wrap the final layer of bandage around his paw, and he thumps his tail against the exam table like you've performed a miracle. You haven't. You've just done your job. The job you've done for 11 years. In this same clinic, under these same buzzing fluorescent lights. Mrs. Higgins thanks you. She presses a check into your hand, warm from sitting in her coat pocket, and she leads Biscuit out into the rain. You lock the front door. You flip the sign to closed. 12 hours on your feet. You press your knuckles into the small of your back and listen to the bones pop. The clinic is quiet now. The way it only gets late at night when the antiseptic smell settles and the hum of the refrigeration unit becomes the loudest thing in the room. You think about leftover pasta. You think about your couch. You think about absolutely nothing else. That's when the fist hits the glass. Not a knock, a fist. You spin around. A man stands on the other side of the door, rain-soaked, shoulders heaving. His eyes are the kind of wide you see in animals that have been hit by cars. Not panicked exactly, past panic. Somewhere beyond it, he isn't holding a leash. He's holding a person. The figure slumped over his shoulder is limp in the way sleeping people aren't. One arm dangles straight down. The other is clamped against the man's stomach, pressing a red towel into a wound that has soaked through the cloth and is now dripping quietly, steadily, down to your front steps, mixing with the rain and the sodium yellow light. You wave them away. You point down the street 4 blocks. There's a real hospital 4 blocks away with real surgeons and real equipment. You're a veterinarian. You treat parvovirus and hip dysplasia in cats that eat Christmas tinsel. The man reaches into his jacket. He doesn't pull out a wallet. He pulls out a gun. He doesn't aim it. He just sets the barrel gently against the glass and looks at you. You unlock the door. They come inside and the quiet is gone. Mud across the tile, water pooling by the entrance. And blood, a dark, purposeful blood that traces a line from the door to your exam table like someone drew it there with a brush. You help hoist the man onto the table. You see the wound clearly now. No animal did this. You tell the gunman, I give rabies shots. I prescribe flea medication. I've never done anything like this in my life. He looks at you for a moment, then he says 2 words, fix him, and somehow those 2 words carry the full weight of everything he didn't say. Fix him, or there will be 2 bodies on your exam table tonight instead of 1. You turn to your cabinets. You have no human medicine, no proper surgical tools, no training for this. What you have is a tranquilizer formulated for horses, ketamine compound rated for animals over 900 pounds. You do the math in your head, converting body weight, adjusting for metabolism, guessing at tolerance. You check the math again, then you check it a 3rd time, because the margin between sedated and dead is narrower than you'd like. You inject the line. The man exhales once, slow and heavy, like something leaving his body. His eyes close, his muscles release. He's under, and you have maybe 20 minutes before the dosage starts to thin. You begin. You work the way you work on trauma cases. Fast, efficient, quiet in your own head. You irrigate the wound with saline. You find the damage and catalog it. You suture with heavy gauge nylon thread designed for large breed dogs, the kind that holds tension without tearing. Your stitches are even. They're good. You're surprised by that. You're surprised by yourself tonight in ways that don't feel entirely comfortable. When you tie the last knot, you step back. He's alive, pale but breathing, pulse weak but consistent. The kind of alive that means he'll probably stay that way if he rests, if he doesn't catch an infection, if luck holds. The gunman steps forward. He reaches into his jacket and places a thick envelope on the man's chest. Then he meets your eyes for the first time since he walked in. Lookin'. And something in his expression is not gratitude, it's assessment. He's looking at you the way you look at a tool when you're deciding whether it's worth keeping. Keep your mouth shut, he says. Buy yourself something nice. He carries the man out through the back. You stand in the middle of your clinic alone. The blood on your floor, the envelope in your hand, the rain still coming down outside. You open it, you count it, $5,000. You close it, you put it on the counter, you pick up the phone, you set the phone down, you pick up the envelope again. Here's something nobody tells you about a moral compromise. It doesn't feel like a line being crossed. It feels like a step, just a step, almost imperceptible. And then you look back and you can't quite tell where you were standing before. You mop the floor, you bleach the table, you bury the envelope in the back of your filing cabinet behind the tax returns from 3 years ago that no one has ever asked about. You tell yourself once, you tell yourself never again. You fall asleep on the couch at 4 a.m. with the TV on and the pasta still in the fridge. 3 nights later, your phone rings at 2 in the morning. Unknown number, you stare at it. The TV is playing something old, black and white, voices you half recognize. Your thumb hovers over the screen. You answer it. "The vet who works late," the voice says. Not a question. "I hear you do good work. You don't speak. A friend of mine needs the same kind of help, double what you got last time." You should hang up. You know this with the same certainty you know your own name. You should hang up, drive to the precinct 3 miles away, walk through the front door and tell them everything. The envelope, the blood, the man with the gun, the untraceable cash hidden behind your old tax returns. You should do that. But there is a tuition bill on your kitchen counter. It arrived 4 days ago. The corner has a red stamp on it, past due. You've been looking at it every morning when you make coffee, and every morning you've moved it slightly and to the left, then to the right, then face down so you don't have to see the number. You give them the address. The second patient is a woman. She has a wound that required 47 stitches. You count them as you go. 47 is a very specific number. You will remember it for a long time. She doesn't speak during the procedure. She stares at the ceiling with a focus that tells you she's been trained to endure pain or has simply had enough practice that training was no longer necessary. When you finish, her partner hands you an envelope without ceremony. You don't count it until they leave. 10,000. You put the deposit on your daughter's first semester the next morning. You start leaving the back door unlocked on Tuesdays and Thursdays. You don't advertise. You don't post anything anywhere, but word finds its own channels through whisper networks and burner phones and people who know people who've needed someone like you. A man arrives with a shattered kneecap and you stabilize it with a brace designed for large mountain breeds, explaining that he needs to stay off it for 6 weeks. A woman comes in with burns across both palms and says she grabbed something hot, and you don't ask what, because you've learned that the information you don't have is the information you can't be made to repeat. You irrigate and dress and prescribe and close. They leave through the back. They leave cash on the table. You upgrade the clinic's surgical lighting. You buy a second autoclave. You tell your ex-wife the practice has finally turned a corner, and she smiles and asks no questions, and you're grateful for that in a way you can't quite articulate. Here's the thing you tell yourself, though. Here is the thing that lets you fall asleep at night. Most of them aren't dangerous people. A construction worker who fell 3 stories and has no insurance. A teenager with a broken arm whose mother is undocumented and terrified of hospitals. A delivery driver with a deep laceration that would cost $3,000 in an ER and cost him a week of work he can't afford. Regular people pushed to the edge of a system that was never designed to catch them. You're filling a gap. You're doing something that matters. The fact that it pays in cash doesn't change what it is. That's the story you're telling yourself at month 3. It's a very good story. The problem with stories is the moment you start to believe them. It's a Thursday. The last patient leaves at 2 a.m. A dislocated shoulder, textbook reduction, 40 minutes including cleanup. You walk him to the back door. You watch him go. You lock up. The parking lot is quiet, wet pavement under sodium light. Your car is in the far corner where you always leave it. You notice the van when you're 10 feet from your car. Black, parked at an angle. Engine off but warm. You can see the heat shimmer above the exhaust pipe. The side door is already sliding open before you can process what you're seeing. 2 men, large and efficient, moving with a precision that has nothing improvised about it. One of them has a bag. You understand in the space of half a second what the bag is for. Then everything goes dark. The bag comes off in a room you've never been in before. Glass walls, medical grade equipment, the kind of machines that cost more than your clinic's entire operating budget. A surgical table in the center, lit from above by a battery of professional lights. A man in a suit standing between you and the table, hands clasped, watching you the way executives watch a product demo. You're the vet, he says. He doesn't ask. He already knows. He steps aside and you see the body on the table. And for a moment, the room tilts. You know this face. Everyone in this city knows this face. The man who owns the Port Authority. The man whose name appears in 3 newspapers every week and in police reports that never go anywhere. The man who is the invisible architecture beneath the visible city. The reason certain things move freely and certain people disappear quietly. He is gray under the surgical lights. His breathing is shallow. His vitals are telling a story that doesn't end well without intervention. You tell the suit, this man needs a real surgeon, a hospital, an actual OR. Hospitals ask questions, the suit says. File reports, call authorities. We've learned to avoid that process. A guard materializes from the peripheral shadow, and you genuinely didn't notice him standing there. And that alone tells you something about how tonight is going to go. His hand rests on his holster with the ease of someone who has never once had to think about that gesture. The suit looks at you without expression. Mammals are mammals, he says. Begin. You scrub in. A woman in surgical scrubs appears beside you. Efficient, quiet, anticipating your movements with a fluency that tells you she has assisted in rooms like this before. Possibly many times. Possibly under conditions you'd rather not imagine. She hands you instruments before you ask. She adjusts the overhead angle when you need more light. You find yourself working in a synchrony that feels almost normal, and the fact that it feels almost normal is perhaps the most disturbing thing about tonight. You open the cavity, you find the damage, you catalog it the way you were never trained to, but somehow know how, through instinct, through analogy, through 11 years of looking inside animals that were built on the same basic blueprint as the man in front of you. But your hands pause, just once, for perhaps 3 seconds, over the open wound. You know who this man is. You've read about the businesses that closed after crossing him, the families that moved away suddenly and never wrote back, the people who challenged his interests and then simply ceased to be part of any narrative anyone was willing to tell. He has done damage to this city that cannot be sutured closed. He has left wounds in people's lives that don't heal clean. You could hesitate a little longer. You could call it a complication. You could let the monitor flatline and shrug and say you tried, and no one in this room could prove otherwise with certainty. Your daughter's face appears in your mind. Her laugh, the way she grabs your hand when you walk somewhere together. Still, even at her age, like she hasn't outgrown it or simply hasn't chosen to. The way she looked at you at her school recital 2 years ago, scanning the crowd, and the exact expression on her face when she found you. Your hands move again. They don't stop. 2 hours and 20 minutes later, you tie the final suture. You step back from the table. Your legs are concrete. Your spine is a single long ache from the base of your skull to your heels. The scrub nurse hands you a towel and you press it against your face and stand there for a moment in the white noise of the monitors. He's alive. His vitals are stabilizing. The body you were given is going to continue functioning. You pull off your gloves. You drop them in the bin. You turn to the suit and you tell him simply, "I'm finished. I'd like to go home now." The suit nods. He says, "Soon." He presses something on the wall. The glass walls go white, frosted, opaque, sealed. In the space of 2 seconds, the room has become a box. You push on the door. It doesn't move. You push harder. Nothing. You put your shoulder into it, then your full weight, then your fists. The glass absorbs all of it without comment. You turn around slowly. The crime lord's eyes are open. He's watching you with an expression that is almost amused. The patient, knowing amusement of someone who has already seen how this scene ends, who is simply waiting for you to catch up. His voice, when it comes, is quieter than you expected, but it carries. "You saved my life," he says. You nod. You tell him, "Yes. And now I need to leave. I have a family." He shakes his head, slowly, the way someone shakes their head at a misunderstanding they find a little sad. "A gift like yours," he says, "wasted on house pets." He lifts one hand, barely, just slightly, and points to the corner of the room. You look. There is a bed there, neatly made, a desk with a lamp, a stack of medical textbooks thick as bricks, the spines uncracked. They were waiting there before you arrived. They were waiting there for you specifically. He's been planning this longer than tonight, longer than last week, maybe longer than you've been leaving the back door unlocked. "I've been looking for someone exactly like you," he says. "Someone who stays calm, someone who asks no questions, someone who works with what they have." You move to the door again. You press your palms flat against the glass. The cold moves up through your hands into your wrists. No one comes. From the speaker in the ceiling, the suit's voice arrives. Even and final. Get some rest. You start early tomorrow. You stand at the door for a long time. Then you stop standing at the door. You sit on the edge of the bed in the corner. You look at the locked door. You look at the man resting on the table. The man whose life is now, in some way you hadn't anticipated, threaded through yours. You look at the books. You look at your hands. You think about the first night, the fist on the glass, the pistol tapping quietly against the door. You thought you were making a decision that night. A choice, weighing options, calculating risk like a rational person. You thought you were in control of what happened next. You were wrong. You understand that now with a clarity that feels like cold water. Every step after that first one wasn't a choice. It was a track, and tracks only go one direction. You spent your entire career doing one thing, keeping living creatures alive. You were good at it. It was quiet work, anonymous work, the kind that doesn't make headlines or win prizes. But it was yours. You understood it. You could measure it. At the end of every shift, you could count the animals that were still breathing because of something you did. Now you're in a room with glass walls and a locked door, and a man who owns half a city looking at you like you're the most useful thing he's found in years. You think about that phrase you use sometimes with new pet owners, the ones who bring in strays they found, thin and wild-eyed, and terrified of everything. It just needs to know it's safe, you tell them. It just needs to know it can't get away. You look at the room, you look at the door, you look at your hands. You spent your whole life saving animals. Now you finally understand what it feels like to be one.